After a long trek, she reached the place Corithras had described. The sight before her made her pause. The oracle tree stood tall, its form unlike any she had seen before. A massive, ancient being, half tree, half beast. Its presence was both eerie and mesmerizing. And there, resting beside it, was the moonwell. She took a moment to absorb the scene, feeling the weight of history in the air. Then, with quiet reverence, she stepped forward, approaching the moonwell.
Over time, Staghelm only grew more disconnected from our people. Some pose that he blames us, his people, for the loss of his son, long ago during the War of the Shifting Sands. Others cite rumors of his escalating conflicts with Tyrande Whisperwind, the shining light of our people, our leader in Darnassus. But many druids of the Cenarian Circle stand firm that he wants only what is best for all of the Kaldorei, and serve him unerringly towards that end. Fendral Staghelm carries the burden of our sins and our follies, and in so doing, deserves the respect of us all.
After filling the vessel with the moonwell's water, Fahari took a moment to steady herself. The words of the shade still lingered in her mind, another layer to the mystery surrounding Teldrassil's corruption. Before departing, she turned toward the nearby priestess, Amora, standing beneath the boughs of the oracle tree. Approaching with quiet reverence, she greeted the priestess, expecting only a passing exchange. But as they spoke, a shadow passed over Amora's face. Another story of corruption. Another piece of a greater tragedy.
This place is sacred. It feels untouched by the corruption I have seen elsewhere.
Not all corruption is seen, Fahari. Some wounds are quiet yet just as deep. Lady Sathra was once beloved of Elune. Graceful and pure, the spider spun her silver threads through the moonlight, catching the evening mist. The silvery dew had strong healing powers and was kept at the nearby temple.
Then she is blessed by Elune. Why do you speak of her in sorrow?
Because she has fallen. Of late, Sathra has descended into madness. Her future generations are now threatened as well. Find Lady Sathra, Fahari, and end her suffering. She dwells northeast of here near the river. Gather her silvery spinnerets and bring them back to me.
Fahari's heart sank. As a druid, she felt the pulse of the land, the whispers of the forest, the quiet suffering of its creatures. Lady Sathra's plight was not just another task. It was a wound upon nature itself. She understood what Priestess Amora truly meant by ending her suffering. The words were gentle, but their weight was heavy. Fahari exhaled, steadying herself. Sometimes, the harshest kindness was to grant peace where none remained. Even if it went against the heart, some pains were beyond healing. Without another word, she turned toward the northeast. Fahari moved silently through the undergrowth, the towering boughs of Teldrassil stretching endlessly above her. The air was still, the soft rustling of leaves the only sound accompanying her steps. She stopped at the edge of the great tree, scanning the area. Then she saw her, Lady Sathra. A creature of breathtaking beauty, her silver form shimmering under the moon's glow, standing in stark contrast to the lush green of the forest. It was as if she had been woven from Elune's own light, a being untouched by time. Fahari clenched her fists. Killing such a creature was not a battle of strength, but of the spirit. The madness in Sathra's movements, the unnatural twitch of her legs, The restless way she spun aimless strands. It was clear. She was suffering. Fahari closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. If this was to be done, it would be done swiftly. She stepped forward. Lady Sathra collapsed, her silver form trembling before growing still. Fahari knelt beside the fallen creature, her heart heavy. She had done her best to bring an end to the suffering swiftly, yet no mercy could ease the weight of such a task. Gently, she reached out and collected the spinneret. Before leaving, she whispered a quiet prayer, offering the creature's spirit to Elune's embrace. Then, without another glance, she rose and ran back toward the oracle tree. As she approached, she could see that Priestess Amora already sensed what had happened. A faint unease clung to her, as if she had felt the moment Lady Sathra's life had ended. Her hands were folded, her expression distant, restless. Without a word, Fahari placed the spinneret in her hands. Her composure broke. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she held the delicate strands of silver. Fahari remained silent, allowing the moment to pass. Not just the loss of a creature. It was the fading of something once sacred, a thread severed from Elune's tapestry. Amora clutched the spinneret close, her grief unspoken yet unmistakable.
I regret the task that I have asked you to carry out, but Lady Sathra was beyond hope. It is our hope to offer the sacrifice of the spinnerets to Elune. With this sacrifice, Elune will bless Sathra so that she might be reborn, and at peace. The forest mourns for Lady Sathra, but it was something that had to be done. I hope now that she can rest in peace. Thank you, Fahari.
As Fahari stood in silence, a soft glow shimmered near the oracle tree. From the air itself, a ghostly form took shape, the spectral figure of Lady Sathra. The great spider moved gracefully, her silver threads trailing like moonlight woven into the night. There was no longer pain in her movements, no restless struggle, only peace. Fahari watched in quiet awe. The forest had not forgotten its beloved creature. It had preserved her spirit, cradled it in its endless cycle of renewal. Someday she would return to the mortal plane, reborn under Elune's watchful gaze. With that thought, Fahari turned away. Her journey was far from over. Fahari made her way to the crossroads near Darnassus, where Corithras had promised to meet her. Her heart was heavy with the weight of what she had seen and done, but there was no time to dwell on sorrow. The corruption of Teldrassil remained, and she was no closer to uncovering its true source.
Along with the druids, the oracle tree has been carefully monitoring the growth of Teldrassil. Our observations have been disheartening, but all is not without hope. The tree is indeed recovering since its blessing, but the growth is still somehow stunted, hindered.
If the blessing is taking effect, then what could still be holding it back?
That is the question we must answer. We suspect some portion of the corruption remains within the tree, waiting to be cleansed. We simply need to find it.
Then tell me what I must do. If the corruption still lingers, I will find it.
There is one last moonwell that I would like you to visit. It lies directly south of here, on the shores of the pools of Arlithriel. Be wary as you seek out the well, and keep your weapons close at hand. I sense a growing corruption from the boughs of southern Teldrassil.
If the corruption has spread there, then the water may already be tainted.
That is why it must be gathered. If something lingers within the moonwell, we must know. When you have the water, bring it to a familiar face at the pools. She wishes to battle the corruption and has asked for you personally.
Someone asked for me? Who is it?
You will see soon enough. Go now, and tread carefully.
As Fahari made her way south, she quickly understood what Corithras had meant by growing corruption. The land itself felt restless, and every creature she encountered was consumed by aggression. Tigers prowled the undergrowth, their eyes filled with an unnatural fury. Spiders clung to the trees, their movements erratic, their silk-covered dens spreading like a sickness. Every step she took seemed to stir the creatures, their hostility pressing in around her. She did not wish to fight. Instead, she used her magic, binding tigers in roots before they could pounce, weaving swift healing spells to mend the wounds from errant attacks. Death had already claimed too much of Teldrassil. She would not add to it unless she had no other choice. As she neared the moonwell, the air thickened, carrying an unsettling stillness. Then, without warning, a familiar presence stirred. The shade of the Kaldorei appeared once more.
Weeks passed. All of those living atop Teldrassil have found their memories blurry, as if time itself seized a portion of their lives. We break from this haze to find that Fendral Staghelm and many of his closest followers have disappeared without a word. But in his place, Shando's Stormrage awoke from the dream and returned to his beloved Tyrande Whisperwind. And with his return came Alexstrasza and Azera, to at long last offer their blessings upon Teldrassil. Though a small corruption lingers, desperately longing to be cleansed, the boughs of Teldrassil itself seem changed. Growth has begun anew. None know what to expect next, but with Malfurion and Tyrande reunited, a new hope dawns on the Kaldorei. Hope for lasting relief from the shadow that has been cast on our people for so long.
Fahari dipped the vessel into the moonwell, watching as the water swirled within, imbued with the ancient essence of Teldrassil. The task was complete, yet the Shade's words lingered in her mind. She turned to leave, but as she did, a familiar figure stood in the distance. Tarindrella. A wave of warmth filled her chest. It had been some time since she last saw the ancient dryad, and the sight of her in this place was unexpected, yet welcome. A rare smile crossed Fahari's face as she stepped forward. She had no doubt Tarindrella would have much to say about the corruption that still clung to the land.
It is good to see you again, Fahari. I see you have succeeded in collecting the waters of the moonwells on behalf of Corithras Moonrage. I hope you have learned much along the way.
More than I expected. The corruption is deeper than I first thought, but so is the resilience of this land.
Indeed. I have spoken to Corithras on my way here, and he has gifted me with the waters you have been gathering. They may well prove useful sooner than we had imagined.
Sooner? What do you mean?
Strangely, the growing corruption we have felt is actually a good sign. Teldrassil has been burdened with this taint for a long time, and thanks to the blessing of the dragon aspects, only now is it coming to the surface in a form that we might strike against.
So the corruption is revealing itself, and now we finally have a chance to fight it.
As Teldrassil purges itself of the corruption that has perverted its growth for all these years, a malevolent growth has formed near the tree's edge south of here. We have an opportunity to strike out and purge the source of the fell moss that has tainted the gnarlpine, the timberlings, and everything else.
The source. So this is where it all began.
Perhaps not where it began, but where it lingers. And now we can finally end it. With the water that you've collected from the moonwells and the renewed strength of Teldrassil herself, I can grant you great power for a short while. Put an end to this corruption, Fahari.
As Tarindrella's blessing took hold, a surge of power coursed through Fahari's veins. The light of Elune wrapped around her, and with it came newfound abilities. Moonlight, a healing grace for her allies. Tidal Pull, a force to gather her enemies. and Starfall, a devastating arcane storm. Without hesitation, she sprinted toward the southwest corner of Teldrassil. The land was crawling with satyrs and corrupted furbogs, their presence thick like a blight upon the earth. She wasted no time. Raising her hand, she unleashed Tidal Pull, drawing them inward in a spiraling vortex of energy. As they stumbled together, she raised her gaze to the heavens. Starfall. A cascade of celestial power rained down, piercing the tainted creatures with relentless force. They shrieked as the arcane storm engulfed them, their corrupted forms crumbling beneath its might. Clearing her way, she pressed forward. At the very edge of the tree, she saw it. The Bough of Corruption loomed before her, an enormous, twisted entity pulsing with dark energy. Its form was gnarled and towering, 3 times her size, its roots stretching deep into the earth, like veins poisoning the land. There was no hesitation. Fahari rushed forward, standing directly beneath the creature's looming shadow. The air crackled as she called forth the stars once more. Starfall, a brilliant cascade of arcane energy, erupted from above, crashing down upon the Bough of Corruption with unrelenting fury. The creature lashed out, its twisted limbs writhing in protest, but it was no match. The spell shattered through its darkened bark, cutting deep into its core. The entity collapsed, its corrupted essence dissipating into the winds of Teldrassil. Fahari exhaled. The corruption had been struck down at last. Fahari felt it instantly, a shift in the air, the weight that had burdened the land lifting. The forest exhaled, its quiet suffering easing. The trees stood taller, the whisper of the leaves now filled with something else. As she ran, she saw the forest moving around her. The great guardians, ancient protectors of Teldrassil, had risen. Their massive forms moved through the trees, restoring order, tending to the last remnants of corruption. The land was healing. Fahari pressed on, eager to deliver the news.
It is done. The Bough of Corruption has fallen, and with it, the taint that plagued Teldrassil. I could feel the forest's relief. The land itself is healing. On my way back, I saw the guardians of the forest tending to the last remnants of corruption. This battle is over.
Ilum be praised. Everything I had encountered suggested this corruption to be buried deep within Teldrassil itself. I had worried we might never be able to strike at the source without killing the world tree. I am thankful I was wrong. Malfurion was the start to this great turn of fortune. Perhaps I will seek him out before I depart to the wilds again. Thank you, Fahari. Thank you for everything you have done. You are sure to be a great hero someday. Our tasks are done here for now. This water proved to be of great importance, but it wasn't originally meant for me. Go ahead and bring it back to Corithras at the crossroads. I'm sure he'd like you to deliver it to its original destination.
It is good to see you again. I sense that Tarindrella's task went smoothly with you by her side.
It did. The corruption was stronger than we expected, but with her guidance, we struck at its heart. Teldrassil is healing, though its wounds will take time to mend.
Thank you for returning to me so swiftly. I have but one last task to ask of you. Shall we?
Of course. If there is still more to be done, I will see it through.
It has been an undeniable honor to have met you. You are a testament to the nobility of your race.
I have only done what needed to be done. Teldrassil's healing is what matters.
And because of you, that healing has begun. Go now and finish this final task. Take the waters to Tyrande Whisperwind in Darnassus.
Fahari nodded to Corithras before setting off toward Darnassus. The city felt different now, more vibrant, more alive. The weight of corruption had begun to lift, and with it, the world tree itself seemed to breathe anew. She moved swiftly through the towering archways, crossing the bridges that spanned the shimmering waters of the capital. Before long, she arrived at her destination, the Temple of the Moon. Stepping inside, she slowed her pace. The temple radiated a quiet sanctity, its towering columns bathed in Ilune's soft glow. The central fountain shimmered, its greenish-blue waters casting ethereal light across the polished marble floors. For a moment she stood still, simply admiring the holiness of this place. But her task was not yet done. With steady steps she ascended to the second floor. And there, standing in quiet grace, was Tyrande Whisperwind. Without hesitation, Fahari approached.
I bring the waters of Teldrassil's moonwells, as Corithras bid me. The corruption has been struck down, and the land has begun to heal.
Ah, the blessed waters from our moonwells. You have borne witness to the spirit of the Kaldorei, then?
I have. And yet, the more I learn, the more I realize how much remains unanswered.
In recent times, I've come to find that the spirit offers more questions than it does answers. But such is the continuing nature of discovery that drives us in our darkest hours. I will offer you the simplest answers that I can. Malfurion has returned to me, to us, but harsh times are yet upon us. Staghelm is gone, and the world is racked with pain. Malfurion has much to mend, and he will need help.
Fahari nodded to Tyrande, a quiet understanding passing between them. She had carried out her duty, yet she knew that her journey was far from over. Turning away, she walked a few steps before stopping. For the first time since setting foot in Teldrassil, she allowed herself a moment to reflect. The battle against the corruption had tested her, but in the end, she had helped restore balance to the land. It was a great achievement, one that many had thought impossible. But as the weight of her task lifted, a new thought settled in. What now? Before she could answer, movement in the distance caught her attention. Sentinel Cordessa. The night elf stood nearby, her sharp gaze scanning the temple grounds, searching for someone. There was purpose in her stance, an urgency that Fahari recognized. Curious, she stepped toward her.